Hey, this is Rick Kaselj, injury specialist from exercisesforinjuries.com. So in this video report, I wanted to go through the 5 tricks that fight rounded shoulders, and I'll get into them right away. So number 1 is stop doing that. And I'll get Andrea to demonstrate one of them, and then I'll kind of highlight the things that you need to stop doing, or at least be conscious of and decrease doing that. Okay, so it's the first one. So number 1 ends up being like sitting with rounded shoulders. Work on trying to sit nice and upright, have those shoulders, head and hips in good alignment. Other postures to kind of be aware of. So we talked about sitting. The other one is driving. So when you're driving, we oftentimes get in a rounded shoulder position, which ends up leading to rounded shoulders, but ends up having a big effect on our shoulder and on our neck. Other things to be conscious of is like your computer work. So doing computer work, that rounded shoulders again leads to more stiffness in the mid-back and ends up leading to mid-back pain. Another one ends up being playing around on the tablet. So playing around with the tablet, same thing. In that position, rounded shoulders, and ends up changing the curves in your spine, leading to more stress on your lower back. And then another big one ends up being playing on the phone, playing on the smartphone, being in that rounded position, ending up having an effect on your neck, shoulders, mid-back, low back, and even in your hip area. So there you go. That ends up being the first trick. Stop, stop doing it. And that might be unrealistic, but try to be conscious of it and be aware of it when you're going through that sitting, driving, computer work, tablet playing, and phone playing. Keep your shoulders in a good position. That'll end up helping reverse and prevent rounded shoulders. Now let's move on to the second tip. Okay, here we are with trick number 2, and I've changed my shirt for trick number 2. So trick number 2 is it's all in your head. We've all heard that. Maybe your mom has said that, or a friend has said that, and people will end up saying that, or sometimes I'll end up saying it when it comes to your rounded shoulders. Now, when it comes to it's all in your head, our minds end up playing a drastic role when it comes to our bodies. And if we end up having emotional stress, a lot of stuff on our mind, things that are going negative on our minds, things that are distracting us, what ends up happening is we end up having a built-up of emotional stress. And that ends up having a big effect on our body, specifically with our muscles. And the muscles end up tightening and shortening, and you'll end up seeing that in your chest muscles. They'll tighten up, and you'll end up rounding, and the head will come forward, and you'll get more and more of those rounded shoulder effect. So what you want to do is address that emotional stress. What is bothering you? And that could be, you can end up doing that by addressing the problem. That ends up being a big thing. Or you can end up relieving that with exercise. Exercise ends up being great when it comes to relieving emotional stress. If you're not able to exercise, what works really well is doing some belly breaths. And what I recommend people do is 5 belly breaths. And what that is I've got one hand on my belly, one hand up here on my chest. I'm breathing in, my top hand shouldn't be moving, my bottom hand is, it's elevating. Then breathing out through my mouth. Breathing in through my nose, belly is getting big, breathing out, and my belly is flattening out. And as I'm blowing out, I'm blowing out all of that emotional tension and stress. And I'm going through 5 of those. And you'll be amazed at how going through those 5 belly breaths end up having a positive effect on your body. So there you go. That ends up being trick number 2. Address emotional stress. Address what is bothering you. Other things that end up helping. If you can't address or deal with what's bothering you, exercise and movement ends up helping. Now, if you can't go out there and exercise and move, go through the 5 belly breaths. That'll end up having a drastic effect on your body, and it will end up helping when it comes to your rounded shoulders. Now let's move on to trick number 3. Okay, now into the third trick for when it comes to 5 tricks that fight rounded shoulders. And with the third trick, what it is, your mouth is the problem. And when it comes to this, you'd be surprised that what you're eating has an effect on your rounded shoulders. And this really specifically has to do with inflammation in your body. And you know what inflammation is? Like, if you ever hurt anything, your knee, your back, or shoulders, and it's kind of gotten hot and warm, that ends up being inflammation. Now, that's from falling or hitting or doing something too often, is what oftentimes leads to that type of joint pain. Now, with this type of joint pain and inflammation, when this type of inflammation, it's like foods that end up inflaming your body and causing inflammation within your body. And what that ends up doing is that constant inflammation in your body puts stress on your body, and it really puts a lot of stress on your organs and your different systems in your body, increasing a risk on a lot of serious conditions like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, etc. But it also ends up having an effect when it comes to your rounded shoulders. So if you have inflammation, a lot of times, if you have abdominal pain or inflammation, you'll end up rounding out through here because what you're eating is having an effect on your abdominal area, your intestines, and that ends up leading to that rounded shoulder. So you need to be cognizant of what you're eating and trying to avoid things that lead to inflammation. Now, the most common ones end up being sugar, gluten, processed oil, alcohol, dairy, and soy. So what I find is, either people have a small sensitivity or a heavier sensitivity to these foods, and these foods end up leading to inflammation in the intestines, in the stomach or digestive system, but also throughout the whole body. So what I recommend for people to do is to do like a 7-day challenge on doing your best to eliminate or minimize those foods that I ended up saying, specifically those 6 foods. So sugar, refined sugar like candy, gluten, specifically looking at in bread products, 3 processed oils, so trying to focus more on whole oils like avocado oil or olive oil, alcohol, dairy, and soy, trying to work on minimizing, eliminating those for 7 days and seeing how your body feels. If your body ends up feeling better, if your digestive system feels better, if your joints feel better, if you end up feeling like you have better, your neck feels better, your shoulders end up feeling better, your posture's better, you're not rounded as much, try that 7-day challenge. And then also a resource that I kind of created from this observation that I had with my clients on how food has affected them, especially on making their bodies chronically inflamed, was I ended up putting a resource called The Best Foods That Slim and Heal in 7 Days. It's a comprehensive list of different foods that you can eat that will help you slim down and also heal your body. It's a great resource. So end up checking it out at exercisesforinjuries.com. So that ends up being the 3rd trick. Now let's move on to the 4th trick. Okay, so now we're in the 4th trick, and this one is eat this for healthy joints. Even with rounded shoulders, we're really talking about a joint. We're talking specifically your shoulder joints, but also your neck, also your mid-back. So it's important to have healthy joints, because when your joints are not healthy, it brings on the pain and it really affects your life. Now, I'll share with you a key thing that I've found when it comes to maintaining good joint health, which ends up helping with rounded shoulders. And that is making sure that you end up having the appropriate macronutrients and micronutrients. So, we all do our best to eat as many fruits and vegetables as we can, but, a lot of times we don't get the micro and macronutrients that we need, even though we're eating as many fruits and vegetables as we can. And that might end up being because of the soil that the food is grown in, how the food was grown, the way we end up cooking it, how the food has been processed. Those end up having an effect when it comes to the macro and micronutrients. So what I noticed was that I ended up being deficient in numerous micronutrients. So what I try to do is make sure that I have all of the micronutrients that I need for optimal joint health. And two that I make sure that I end up having on a daily basis is boron and MSM. Those are two very important micronutrients for joint health. Now, I ended up doing my own research and I really couldn't find a good source for MSM and boron. So what I did was I put together a daily supplement that I end up taking called Joint Complex 4000 that helps me, have healthy joints. It has boron and MSM, but it also ends up having 21 other, pain relieving ingredients. And all of these ingredients help when it comes to relieving pain, helping with joint health, helping with muscle health. So if you have rounded shoulders, if you have any types of aches and pains, if you have any concerns that you're not getting the right amount of micronutrients for joint health, then I would strongly suggest checking out Joint Complex 4000. It's excellent for ideal joint health and also muscle and tissue health. So there you go. Check out Joint Complex 4000. Your muscles and joints will be happy. Now let's move. That ends up being trick number 4. Let's end up moving on to trick number 5. Okay, now we're into the 5th trick and last trick, and this one ends up being the 3 best exercises for rounded shoulders. And I'll get Andrea to go through them. So we're going to do them in a sitting position, and the reason why we end up doing them in a sitting position because it allows us to focus in the shoulder area. So if we take the hips and legs out of the exercise and position, it allows us to target the shoulders area better so you can get more out of the exercise. So the first exercise ends up being open collarbone. And what that is you're starting off in a good upright posture, so head, shoulders, and hips are in good align. Curvature in your low back is the same, are normal for you. Curvature in your mid back is normal. And then what you're going to do is try to open up the collarbones. So you'll end up feeling a light stretch in the front of your shoulder. Right here, you'll end up feeling a light stretch. You're going to hold that for a couple seconds, and then you're going to end up relaxing. And then you're going to open up again. Just opening up that collarbone, looking for a light stretch. We're targeting pectoralis minor and pectoralis major, which are muscles that tend to be tight, leading to the shoulder being pulled forward and contributing to that rounded shoulder look. Now, what I would do is go with the hold of 5 seconds, and you can do 5 repetitions. And then from there, you can end up progressing to a 10-second hold to 10 repetitions. After that exercise, you're going to move on into the next one, which ends up being a mid-back tightener. So with this one, once again, you're trying to get in a good posture, head, shoulders, hips, back is normal curve, mid-back is normal curve. Then you're going to bring the hands in behind your head, lace them together. Then you're going to bring the elbows back a little bit. And then you're really, what's bringing your elbows back is you're tightening up your mid-back. You're tightening up the muscles in your mid-back in order to get into that position. And just like the first one, you're looking for a 5-second hold. You're going to do 5 repetitions to start off with. Then you're going to kind of take a look and see how it ends up feeling. If you end up feeling better, that ends up being good. You can progress on to like a 10-second hold and 10 repetitions. How hard you contract, you want a good solid contraction. You're not going as hard as you can. When you're going through this exercise, you might end up feeling a light stretch in the front of the shoulder. That's fine. Key thing you don't want to do is like elevate or shrug up the shoulders. The shoulders are relaxed. you're intertwining the fingers, you're bringing the elbows back, tightening up that mid-back. So what we're working on is waking up those muscles in the mid-back, which oftentimes tend to be turned off because of your rounded shoulders, and also once again stretching out the front of the shoulders. Now, after moving to the third one, after this one, ends up being laced fingers overhead. So once again, you're in that good upright posture, head, shoulders, hips are in good alignment. You got the normal curve in your low back and in your mid back. And then you're going to interlace the fingers and you're going to lift them overhead as far as you can. So with this one, we're working on the mid back once again and shoulder blade muscles, and then also working on movement or mobility in that mid back area. Good, and back down. So with this one, just the same, 5-second hold at the top. Going to do 5 repetitions. All 3 exercises and this third one, nice smooth controlled movement. And then after you've gone through the 5 repetitions, see how it ends up feeling. If it feels better, progress on to the 10-second hold and also to a 10 repetition count. Now, I've talked about being in that good posture position when doing the exercises. So I'll get Andrea to demonstrate if she did it wrong. So rounded shoulders and head forward and interlacing the fingers and trying to go overhead. What ends up happening is you end up limiting, perfect, thank you. You end up limiting how much range of motion you end up having, and also you end up really having to force at the end, and usually that force is not good for the shoulder. You're putting a lot of stress on the internal part of the shoulder joint and the muscles that kind of go through that shoulder joint. So you want to be in that ideal position. Also, being in that poor posture, the rounded posture, what you end up doing is if you strengthen in that poor posture, then you're going to end up reinforcing that poor posture, that rounded shoulders, and you don't want to do that. You want to be in the position you want and then train in that position, so you end up moving into that position. Okay, so there you go. That ends up being the 5 tricks. Give them all a go. I know it'll end up having a great effect on your rounded shoulders. Now, make sure to swing by exercisesforinjuries.com. Enter in your injury or pain. It's like a free resource site when it comes to injury and pain. I have all kinds of articles, videos, and interviews that'll help you overcome pretty much whatever injury or pain you have. So this is Rick Kasalj from exercisesforinjuries.com saying take care and bye-bye.